Are we on? Okay. So we're just putting in all of the wildflowers that we picked from the areas that Robbie would have grown up in, from here, from Caherleaheen, from Ballymullen, from any of the areas around Ballymullen that he would have been associated with, and Ballyseed Wood, and there's wild garlic in there now, so it smells beautiful. So I've just put them into the bag now, and these have been inside in the house. Mammy also picked hawthorn because he wanted Mayflower on his grave, and she's had it inside in the car since she picked it a couple of days ago, because she won't bring it into the house because she'll bring the fairies in. So I've had to put it into the bag here outside the house. So that's that job.
Really were, they were, you don't know what to wear, because it was pouring rain yesterday, it never stopped, and look at today, now I thought it would be soaked, and I've been turning, I was up in Banner last year.
Do we not know by now that you should have been telling Uncle Bob around 11 here by 12?
How are the boys?
We were down in Dingle yesterday. Yes. +2.
Oh, just there saying this even worse.
And I never got
No, whose birthday is it?
I'll grab a quick cup of tea, yeah?
Oh yeah, we've plenty of time. We're waiting for Nora as well, and Robert actually.
How are you? How are you?
Did you not see her there?
Just go.
No.
He didn't see you there.
I wasn't looking, like.
It's more like you started like see him. Hello, Dennis. Great.
How's it going? Thanks for coming over.
Well, thank you for having me.
The box, yeah.
Yeah.
The box, yeah. How things?
You get more like your dad every time I see you.
Do you think?
Oh God, they gave you the proper name, yeah. Good job they didn't give you Robert. It would have looked odd.
No, man. I hope I get his longevity.
Oh, you will.
Yes,
Yeah.
what age?
92.
God bless you.
Just short of 9. And he was saying,
And he was great.
it was great most of the time. He was a bit addled, but we
Well, you
always
do
were,
when
yeah.
you get to 92, you're not.
But he kept saying all that year, you know.
When it was up here, he was so positive. Always.
Oh, always, yeah.
Always positive.
Yeah. He was always happy, wasn't he?
He was always very happy.
Oh, hello.
No.
How are you?
Thanks for watching there as well.
This is a nice surprise.
How are you?
Thought I would
Oh, very good, very good. It's on your
I
own.
wonder has Mother and Daddy photographs of all. I have a couple of nice ones of your daddy and Cal together.
Oh, right.
Do you?
Pat,
These is two, yeah, that'd be nice to have.
Yeah, it's nice to have photographs.
will you go down? Timmy and John are in the front room. Will you bring them out? Hey Nora,
Whatever age.
just bring them out into the fresh air.
Hello, Nora. How are you, love?
I often think when you know, when I think when somebody dies, I often think back at what things were like when they were young. You know,
Yeah, and Robbie was mad about her.
And you all around here.
I remember that dog.
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, there's a photo of the camper van there with the yeah Rebel.
We thought he was a really kind of dangerous dog at the time.
I know they don't. All I got from Robert was a recorded message.
Is he coming here or is he?
It was
It was an ambulance. No, it's the boy that's living in Tralee.
We're going to put the photographs of the dogs into the grave, Dennis, because he wants to be buried with his dog's ashes. So, or with his ashes with his dogs. So that's the best we can do. Just of the dogs, and then there's photographs there with Robbie with the dogs. We're holding on to those because I think that they're his photos of his dogs, and he would remember all those times. So it's appropriate to put them in.
Siobhan finished
Today.
Today's her last day.
Is that a 5:45?
I would say I have photographs of Cal.
She's finished at 5:15.
The exam's on all day.
Oh my God.
It's done now, basically, like, so she's on the end of the day, you know?
Oh my God.
It shows me that's what they know.
You're Dennis.
Will you move around with the video there so that I'm in it as well, Pat? Thanks. And there's still standing. Karina's videoing there, so fine there. I'll stand in front of her line.
The dinner is on. Turn off the dinner.
I do. Turn off the dinner.
What time is it? I have no contact. What time is Laura?
We better go now, lads.
What time is it?
It's
13 minutes.
you later go up to
I must have a look at the ladies.
Oh, you brought the big bag. Everything will fit in there.
We wish.
And he had this was his dog.
We had loads of pets, and we're going to put the photographs in.
No, they're our dogs. They're taking photographs out belonging to Robbie because they're dogs.
Okay.
Yeah, but Robbie does that to me.
They're in the house. Yeah.
near the kitchen where the food is.
Just wait outside the gate for me, please, and yeah. We got the camera, the television production crew up the rear. Or make sure to catch me in video because I'm going to be videoing myself, so I'll be...
What was I?
Okay.
Robbie having a beat at the moment.
He is, yeah. Do you want to pass him to Mick there, Timmy? Mick? Mick?
Oh, here's Robert. Mick.
Oh, here's Robert.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, he's headed for
Robert,
too long.
Robert, so... forward. What you always wanted, Nora? Up in your arms, in close to the boobs now, Nora.
Yes. Yes, he's got the boys, the charity.
I'd like Rory and Keane to carry him into the graveyard together. The youngest. So, will you wait at the gate there? Don't go in yet. Dennis, I think it would be nice for Rory and Keane to carry him into the graveyard, the youngest boys.
Who has it there?
Nora.
Nora.
Hold on, they'll wait at the gate here. Rory and Keane. Rory and Keane, you're going to carry him in. Come back to me. Come back to me. Now, the two of you can carry him there. Catch Robbie there now. And Keane, hold him with Rory. The two of you. Carry him together. That's it. Good boys. You're the youngest Tangneys. That's it. Oops. That's lovely now. Will they carry him up to the grave? Are they okay with that? Yeah.
Lovely to meet you.
Well, what we did for this day.
I don't know, we'll see how bad my summer results are.
Yes, they all change, you know.
But the next day, he got up when he come in.
They have been declining in Tralee, definitely. Well, they're building it in Tralee, maybe something running. It's definitely up and running in Sarnia.
What's that now?
Burying walls.
Oh, there is one, yeah.
It's also going to stay, you know, they up the price of the site, then he's going to get the ground and get down the price of the burying. No, it was actually quite good. Rena.
My God, I'm roasting. It is not a day for tights. May Ryan? Oh, look at me. Mummy! Mummy! Rory. Oh, they're saying, Mummy! You say hello to May here. Bring him over here, Rory. These are his friends here. They're his friends.
Well, Robbie's coming to say goodbye, and he's going to join me now. And we're coming to say hello and goodbye at the same time. Okay.
Okay.
Now we go down to the
Hey, how's it going? Let's see what's on foot.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, he won't go into the...
I didn't hear, and I will be on top of her. Repeat it,
You're going to get it on your own.
Oh, the kids here.
Who's here? Oh, Francis is here. Francis Shukru. And that's the gravedigger with him, I'd say. Francis. Where's Denis Shukru? Hello, how are you?
time flies now, doesn't it? And I was painting behind Francis.
Oh yeah, hi Francis.
Hello.
How are you?
How are you? Yeah.
You're looking great.
You're looking smashing.
No, thank you very much.
Smashing.
Thank you.
Smashing. I'll go up there and I'll
Hop in there with the family. We have chairs there, Francis, if you need a chair.
Yeah, that's well. Keep well.
Now, Sean, we have a small bit of humanitarian thing, so we'll be saying a few things and doing a bit of reading. Is that all right? Beautiful. And aren't we lucky with the day?
Yeah, lovely, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Come on and gather around. Our next door neighbour, Robert.
Yes, I met him coming in.
Peter Dennehy, he saw him out at Peter Caherleaheen. And you know, we had a conversation with him about 1927 and his oh, yes. He saw him out at Peter Caherleaheen.
You had Mark, and I remember you doing
yeah.
Owen was born here.
I remember Mark.
Why did you write that song about my God? I don't know. And he was like my husband, really like the days he died. If he could have got up and put the roof on, he would have. But he had a terrible at the end. He had a terrible death because he went so long. taken over organs.
Oh,
It's a great song.
Another neighbour of ours here.
I still have it, it's gone back up.
Somebody said it recently, and I passed it. I knew there was renovations.
Yeah, there's renovations, but it's my front garden now.
So it's not, I'm telling you, this in the single symbols, it's like all nature and I'm each good neighbours as well. Oh yes, we're fine, yeah. Yeah, okay. Now, I want to take this opportunity to thank you most sincerely and to welcome you to Robbie's final departure from this life. We are so grateful to see so many relatives, neighbours and good friends. Now I'll hand over to Gail and she'll carry on the next bit. This is a humanitarian service. Robbie wasn't interested in having anything on the religious nature, and so that was his wish, so we're abiding by his wish. But we will say a decade of the rosary, and we hope he doesn't turn in his grave when he hears that. So now I'll hand you over to Gail.
Okay. So again, just to echo what Mammy said, just looking around us, we have an absolutely beautiful day for this, absolutely gorgeous. It was like yesterday morning, but we can enjoy it now. He had 92 years, so you know, if we could all get that and start crying. So the first thing that we'd like to do is, I know that we have people who've travelled from very far. We have Joan and Mick, who came the furthest to brought Robbie back home from Liverpool, and we have neighbours and we have relations and friends. And so I'll just open it out there. If anybody would like to say a few words, if you don't worry about it, but if you'd like to say a few words, we'd invite you to now.
Well, my sister Peggy, who lives in Dublin, and unfortunately she can't be here today, she knew Robbie and she visited when Robbie was visiting us, because Robbie he was so much part of our family. So she sends her sympathies to us and her best wishes that we have a happy day. So that's coming from Peggy and her family in Dublin.
We knew Robbie as Bob, and
yeah.
Bob was more than Uncle Bob. He was better than a friend. You could go and talk to him. You could have a conversation. Anything you wanted to talk about, he'd talk to you. If you got any problems or something was bothering you, he was absolutely fabulous.
he came into my life. We met each other. Bob and I met each other at a time in our lives when we were meant to each other. Over 30 years ago, we were meant to meet. And we went through bad times, we went through good times, we went through everything, and yet he was always there. My children called him Uncle Bob, and when they got to be 18, he said, no, you can call me Bob now, you're adults. And they all said, no, you're either the BFG, our big friendly giant, or you're our Uncle Bob, which is what he was to my children. He was a grandfather they didn't have at the time. He was my father in a lot of ways. You know, there was nothing that I could say to him. He was non-judgmental. Any advice, he would give it unsolicited, without judging. And I loved him, and he loved me. And that was the privilege I had of meeting this man who was so kind, gentle and loving.
And might I add that we were so lucky that they did meet, because over the years, in the good times when Robbie's health was good, they had a great time. But it was when he fell into ill health and that he needed the friendship most that they were there with him. And they did for him. We were too far away. They did for him what we couldn't do for him, but we would love to have done it for him. Now we were over and back and everything. It's amazing that a man, he was the children's uncle, but they got on with him famously. And so we want to thank Joan and Mick for all the care, love and attention that they gave Robbie.
It was our privilege, you know.
Yeah. Anybody else? Denis, would you like to say something?
Yeah, my mother was very fond of him. Now he every time he came to Ireland, like he called to see her at least five or six times. There were times, and I started to wonder, Jesus, was there something going on here? You know. It's a fact. But he was a lovely man, and we have pictures at home of Robbie, Denis, and John, sort of my brother John, you know, and Mam was very fond of him, and she used to buy Fuller's cakes long ago. Do you remember the Fuller's cakes?
Yeah.
Very hard to get. You could get them in England, north of England, all right. But she used to buy a Fuller's cake for Robbie came, like, you know, sort of always had it. And that's the long-lasting memory, like, you know, sort of I have of these Fuller's cakes and Robbie.
Robbie, very good.
But he was a fine cut of a man. He was a, you know, he was a very good-looking man, like, you know, sort of in his day. Some people around town used to call him Robert Mitchum, you know.
Oh yes, he was
yeah.
So that's all I have to say about him. Everything I have to say really about Robbie is very, very good. Like, you know, it's memories I have. Oh yes, there was one time he came and he hired a Morris Minor van, our car. I was into cars big then. I was able to drive at the age of 12, believe it or not. But I was into cars big time. So he said, I said, so he let me sit into the car anyway, like, you know, and then next thing I heard the growl from the back. He did not see a dog in the back of the car.
Yeah. That's the dog there.
You had the dog all the time. Yeah. When I got out of the car fairly fast. But, no, Robbie, yeah, lovely.
Thank you very much, Denis. Francis, would you like to say something?
I make it short. He was a lovely man, a lovely human being. He'd always come to visit us, and he was so respectful.
Yes.
Thank you.
I said,
Thank you,
Thank you,
Francis.
Francis.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any Robert, Denis, Aaron? You say it.
No, I said it grand.
You know, no word, Robert? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Peter Dennehy now, Peter knew him when he was a young man, so maybe Peter could tell us how he found Robbie and so on.
Every time he came home, we used to meet him because my mother and my grandmother.
Yeah.
They're neighbours again now because they're over there.
Yeah.
He was an amazing man. Every time he came home, obviously he had lots to do and lots of places to visit, but he always found time to come down to visit my grandmother.
Yeah, very
She
good.
was kind of in the house, she never came out, but he would come down to meet her, and they would talk for hours about whatever happened down these years before that.
Yeah.
That was about 65 years ago when I first met him, I think, around then, 66 years ago.
Long time, yeah.
And every year he came home after that, I'd remember he was there, because she'd be talking about it for weeks afterwards.
Yeah.
He wasn't really a lovely man, and he had great time for Tralee and where he came from.
I had. The connection was never broken.
And he enjoyed his trips home, so I'm glad to see he's here.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Would anybody else like to say anything? The family, the immediate nephews and nieces, we're going to do a reading later, so does anybody want to say anything?
No.
Okay, if you do, you can, you know, it can pop in at any stage. So the next thing that we're going to do, and what we did for Daddy when we were burying Daddy, so Daddy's Daddy's over here next at Grandad's feet, and Robbie's going to go at Granny's feet. And Mammy's going to go in the middle.
I put them all in 5 feet.
I thought you were going to keep that secret.
The decision was only made the other day. I have to make it.
Mammy had to make the decision so that we knew which side to put Robbie.
Sean put me right. He told me I had it all wrong, and Sean very diplomatically rang me and just adjusted the way that I thought that they were lying in the grave. So thank you very much for that, Sean.
So when Daddy was buried, we lined the grave first with flowers. So we've done the same for Robbie. So we have some flowers, a bag of flowers here. They're wild flowers.
Yeah, they're there.
And
Robert in that bag there.
They're wild flowers. So inside here we have flowers from all of the areas that would have been Robbie's stomping ground. We have flowers from bluebells from what?
Yeah.
The smell of wild garlic is, yeah. We've bluebells from Ballymullen. I have ivy from Ballymullen Castle. I have brambles from down by the river in Ballymullen. There's speedwell, which I thought would be nice because that was usually given if somebody was going on a journey. There's wild garlic from Ballyseedy Wood. There's cherry blossoms from Higgs Terrace. There's mayflower, which wasn't allowed into the house and was only put into the bag this morning in case the fairies were brought into the house. There's horse chestnut candles from, there's a horse chestnut candle from the big house at the top of Ballymullen. I've flowers from the back of Clayton Love, from the Parkeen, where the Parkeen was, from in front of Caherleaheen. No, I was going to do that. So there's all these flowers. We're going to ask you all to put in some flowers to line his grave, and then we put them on top of the casket as well. And so what we're going to do as well when we're doing that is we're going to play a song, Hugger Féin on Caherleaheen, and I think it's lovely that he's been buried in May. He's been buried at the height of summer, everything's in bloom, and as we know, Robbie loved nature, so it's very fitting that I think we play Hugger Féin on Caherleaheen. We'll bring the summer with us because it's a song that was traditionally sung on the 1st of May, and it celebrates the coming of summer, the birds that are returning, the cuckoo, the hawthorn, all the flowers that are coming into bloom. So we're going to play that. I have our DJ Lonnie about to play that for us. So what we might do now is we'll just we're going to put the photographs in as well, maybe afterwards. So I'm going to ask you all to come up to take some flowers to put them in, to line the grave first of all. So
I'll take that shot.
Yeah, right.
Oh wow.
Oh my.
We're nearly looking at Granny. Yeah? Really? Right. Okay. So will you start playing it there, Sal? So if you want to come up one by one in no particular order and just okay. Now you can
pardon? You go first. Yeah.
Take my one, lady, for me, will you?
I will, yeah. And I've taken a bundle for Denis Tangney. I'm going to put this photograph in here now.
They came from the top of
that's a nice touch, That's a nice touch.
Yeah, we did that for Denis as well.
Yeah, I know,
and it was November, so we were Is your back okay? Do you want to sit on the chair?
I stay with it for the time being.
There's no point in bring that chair over here. No, you recently hurt your back, so I mean you can't be expected as a good man.
And Mick has got some hawthorn.
Yeah, good, because I suppose they brought that request with them.
A special request by Robbie. That's lovely, and
lovely
some lovely
bluebell.
bluebells, and the bluebells came from Ballymullen as well, from the Caherleaheen. And that's a dandelion in Bonneywood for the, she thought it would be fun to pick a dandelion. And the pink flowers come from the top of the wall on the barracks.
Anybody else
I
here?
went into Ballymullen barracks. I picked the leaves from the oldest trees, the biggest, tallest trees that would have been there when he was young. There's cherry blossoms from Higgs Terrace, and their mammy went out and got them because they didn't last very long. So.
And Robert was coming over to cut the grass, and then they'd be gobbled up by the lawnmower.
Don't put it.
Good girl.
What's gone in there now? It was a little wildflower that was growing on the wall there down one of the old walls down beside the river in Ballymullen. I pulled it off the wall. It was opposite the castle. Anybody else now?
What you pull off the wall, Gail?
There's sticky backs as well. We were in Valley City Wood and we got sticky backs, and the sticky backs were put on my back first by Blondie, so we said we wanted to put sticky backs in because no doubt when he was young up there we was throwing sticky backs at people.
Juliet, would you like to? No, thanks. No, okay. No, okay.
Because we let's list the sticky backs. Yeah?
Yeah.
And
she done a great job now too.
To know that Peter was here.
I wouldn't have thought of this at all.
And we photographed some Peter of Robbie and Sis.
Yeah, but we discussed it the last time we were down.
And the fern
at the readings, yeah, you were all. Yeah,
this wasn't that Denis.
that was beginning to
This wasn't that Denis's burial.
It wasn't this long.
Has everybody? The side is from Valley City Castle, or not Valley City, from, actually there are flowers that were growing on Valley City Old Castle and Ballymullen Castle as well. And there are soldiers in there too. And if you look on Ballymullen, I was walking up Ballymullen trying to find flowers and there's nothing there. It's denuded. We'll come to that word later. There was a little touch of soldiers plantain growing just near the gate of the Ballymullen barracks, and I thought that if they were young, none of those would be standing there because all the young fellows would have them picked playing soldiers. They wouldn't be there. So the next thing now, we're going to put his dogs in. So anybody that knew Robbie loved his pets and his dogs.
Can I have a look?
You see that Alsatian?
Thank you. What?
You see that Alsatian? You got the.
No, I'm looking for him. Yeah.
Of course,
And the dogs used to come to Ireland when I suppose in the late 70s when he used to bring his camper van with him. He'd bring his Alsatian. So I remember Rebel coming, but Mick and Joan know the dogs better, because they lived beside Robbie, so they know all the dogs' names and the cats.
Look at that sensation that can be amazing, so amazing.
And Robbie, when we had Robbie home last for his 90th, we were pressing him to talk to us about what he wanted for his funeral. And he said he wanted his ashes scattered with his dogs in the back garden of his house in Warsop, but of course that's not possible. Somebody else has that house now. So this is the next best thing. We're going to put his dogs in with him.
Is the house still called Tralee or Kerry or something?
It was Tralee.
Tralee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many? The dog was called Kerry.
Was it?
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Do you want to talk about his dogs?
How many dogs had he?
They had
must keep in mind that
4, isn't it?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah. We were all fond of dogs. Our whole family was fond of dogs. I had a dog from the age of 4 upwards. And I was telling you a quick story. I was 5, and we lived in Clonbeg that time. And I came home from school, and Kerry was my dog's name as well. She was a golden cocker, and she broke out over the she ran out to meet me, and ran over to the entrance, ran across the road to meet me, and she was hit by a car. I was in an awful state, terrible state. I picked the dog up anyway. The dog was yelping. And Shawnee Sheedy, a friend of mine, came down and he said, what happened? So he said, what'll I do? I said, what'll I do? Anyway, we figured out that there was a man up the street in Ballymullen, and we went up to him thinking that he was a vet. Now, we didn't know what a vet meant. So we went up and knocked on the door, and I said, my dog has been knocked down, my dog's knocked down, and I think he's going to die, and this man said to me, I'm not a vet, he said, son, he said, I work for the department, he said, but I'm not a vet. Didn't thank him or anything, just ran off again to find somebody to help my dog. To make a long story short, the man's door that I knocked on, he was the man who knocked down my dog.
Oh my God. Oh God.
I'll never forget him. The man, I mean.
Yeah.
But I nursed Kerry back. I had her. I had Kerry.
If you're an animal lover, because Francis, you had dogs, you had the Kerry Blues.
Kerry Blues and some golden cockers as well, like Denis.
Yeah. And we had dogs.
Kerry was the name of one of them, Denis.
Yeah.
You had Kerry as well.
Yeah.
We put them in.
Okay. I'll put them in there now. Thank you. So we line the bottom there with them, so he'll have his dogs by his side. Now, and we'll say a decade of the rosary. He won't be able to do anything about it. So, would anybody special like to? Rena, would you like to put him in? No, Robert? Or Denis?
No, of course I can. One of you put him in.
The two boys, the two of you put him in.
Oh, that's very nice, very nice.
Decade of the Joyful Mysteries of the Rosary, and I just start, and then I want all the younger generations then to say Hail Mary, and that will be their involvement. So, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Mammy has written a poem, and she's going to read that now.
Robbie, as you come to the end of your life's journey, surrounded by those who loved you so dearly, though far apart, your family are here with you clearly, as we say goodbye and bid you farewell.
Our hearts are so full of our love just for you, that as we lay your gentle soul to rest, we can see your worth oh so clearly, that we think of you as one of the best. Your gifts in this life were so simple and pure. A love of God's nature you kept close to your chest. But love for your dogs is where you shone best. Your long life was a gift that you used oh so well, when you created magic with the ink in your pen. But if truth were to be told, where you shone at your best was with people who loved you, and you loved them as well. So sleep easy, my friend. Your job here is done. We will never forget you. You live on and on. So slip quietly away to your forever home, where now you can rest your tired, weary soul. Sean Walya.
And to conclude, as you all know, Robbie is a very gifted writer, and that he wrote his autobiography of the days around me. And the last chapter is called The Leaving, and it describes what it was like for him at 18, leaving Tralee, and the circumstances, the economic circumstances at the time that led him to leave Tralee, and how it was just at that moment when he was leaving. So we're going to read it now. The nephews and nieces, and thinking of Simon and Toby over in England as well, and we're going to read the last 5 paragraphs from the book of when he left Tralee, because it's full circle now. He's come home and he's back in Tralee for good. So Joanna is going to start with the first paragraph.
Summer was halfway through and we were starting out on the final run down the line. Soon the job would be completed and I'd once again be unemployed. It was time to be making plans to build a more secure future. It was a time of mass migration. Young men and women were packing their utility suitcases and departing from the scene every day of the week. Familiar faces were vanishing overnight as if it was a plague, was sweeping through the town, carrying off the young and healthy. Hardly an evening went by in which I did not bump into some friend who did not stop to inform me that he was catching the first train out in the morning, bound for the emigrant boat in Birmingham or London. I found a sadness in the farewells because though brave faces were shown, I would detect an underlying reluctance to take that vital step. I felt that if I did not join the exodus, I would wind up like a Robinson Crusoe, alone, cut off from my own generation, a castaway in a denuded nation.
We're reading in, as we're going down the family, down in ages.
$186.
My father had been working in London for several years, and on his last visit home had invited me to come and join him, even if it were only to be for a holiday. I'd saved a few quid while working on the power lines and figured that there would be no better time to take the plunge. My first step was to have my photo taken and then to go to the guards' barracks to complete the other formalities required to qualify for a travel permit card, or what we mistakenly called a passport. I was going to pull up my roots and depart exactly 1 week after my temporary job came to an end. I told my boss of my plans and he looked upon them with disfavour. To him there was no place like home, and he did his best to convince me that I had made a wrong decision. He went so far as to suggest that if I could manage to ride out the winter, he would do all he could to get me employed on a permanent basis. I rejected his kind offer in my innocent belief that faraway hills were green and that foreign streets were paved with gold.
As the date of my departure drew closer, I was filled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. having assured family and friends that there would be no turning chicken, inwardly I was tormented by doubt. Although England was our nearest neighbour, it was still a foreign land with a different lifestyle and culture. I had heard many glowing reports from those we swore they would never again settle down in Ireland, but there were also those whom it would ever be an alien environment to which they could never adjust. I pondered long and hard on how I would cope with the contrast between a small town and the world's largest city.
Next phase, all the way to there. I wandered around and surveyed my neighbourhood with a keener eye, and the decade or so that had passed since our young gang had ruled the roost, changes had occurred that I'd never noticed before. A new gang played ball in the street, but they were better attired than we had ever been, and they had a real ball as well, rather than the bundle of rags tied with a string, which we had to make do with. Our swimming pools had fallen out of favour, the dams we had kept in such good repair had now disintegrated for want of maintenance, and trout would have difficulty in navigating where we once stood, waist deep in the cooling water. The field with the buttercups and daisies, where the milkmaids once frolicked, was now a council tip, and the banks that were home to cowslip and primrose looked set to vanish beneath the rubbish and the waste of urban sprawl. Downriver, I made my way to the pool where Rose had met her miserable and lonely end, but of her or the rock that had anchored her to her final bed there was no trace. Time and tide had washed away, leaving nothing but the memory.
The sun came out to smile on me that September morning when I left the house on my way to the station. I had said my goodbyes at home. I knew that there would be enough tears washing around to swill the departure platform without me and mine adding to the deluge. It was easy to pick out the hardened travellers from the first-time travellers. The smiling groups contrasted strongly with those that were providing the waterworks. I found myself a seat with my back to the engine and consoled myself by watching the performances on the platform, the weeping and wailing as if the departure was going to the grave rather than to a new life, the hugs and handshakes that threatened to cause serious physical damage to the recipients, and the loud keening that would warrant a round of applause at any good wake.
I sighed with relief when the whistle blew and the engine groaned to send out a blast of steam that wafted down the platform, mercifully shrouding the mourners from view. A few loud chugs and a slight jerk took us gently out of the station, beyond the level crossing and out into the country. Foley's Glen and the track over the top of Sleevemish stood out sharply in the early morning sunlight, and as we gathered speed, they slowly vanished from view. The familiar outline of the mountain began to alter by the minute, and before I realised it, I was viewing it from the other side. Like a giant purple curtain, they had drawn across to shut out the valley in which I had been born and nurtured, and which now was being left behind, like the nest from which the young bird departs.
Robbie's book is called Other Days Around Me, and we're going to play Oft in the Stilly Night, which is where the words Other Days Around Me come from. We think that that is the most fitting because they're the words he chose for his own book.
And in the words of Oft in the Stilly Night, they include the words Other Days Around Me, and it is actually a poem written by Thomas Moore, and it was set to a Scottish air, and it's now being sung by our own John McCormack. brought Robbie full circle. From the time that he left, and now, so many years later, we've brought him back. And thank you for your contribution towards this humanitarian service. And thank you very much, Sean and John and the babysitters. Thank you very much. So now we'll all return to Hill's Terrace for a cup of tea and something to eat, because you deserve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Getting out of the car. I was getting out of the car and I pulled and I left my left leg inside. And I pulled.
Have some organising.
My husband's best friend he was.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Keen. Happy birthday to you. How old are you now? 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 Woo!
He's going to sing for you on stage.
Hey!
Woo!
We saw the
I said we'll go home now and think about it.
Oh, thank you. No, that song, Keen, you said you'd sing us. Where is it? That's the photograph actually in the RIP.ie. As I said, if you need to RIP.ie because if I'm after croaking, because somebody used to work in Broadwich.
You're doing well today.
Really Gorman over in Tesco's thought I was after croaking. Yeah.
Are you doing? Oh, I had small pot friends.
You what?
I had small pot.
Oh, because you're doing.
Give it a small taste while there's no sugar. Do you want to take it?
Yeah.
Is it okay, sir?
Where's Cloney gone?